I was 9 years old when the woods said my name for the first time. Not loudly, not like someone calling from far away. It was right beside my ear, soft enough that I felt the breath before I understood the word. My grandmother used to take me on evening walks whenever I stayed with her during the summers. She lived in a small house pressed against miles of forest. No streetlights, no fences, just trees that started at the edge of her backyard and stretched farther than I could see. She loved those walks, said the woods were honest at night. I didn't know what that meant back then. That evening felt normal. The sky was bruised purple, the last strip of sunlight dissolving behind the trees. Grandma held my hand like always, her skin thin and cool, her steps steady despite her age. She was talking about the garden. Tomatoes, always the tomatoes. They need more patience than people, she said, chuckling softly. That's when I heard it. My name. A whisper. Perfectly clear, right next to my ear. I froze. Grandma? She kept walking for 2 more steps before noticing I wasn't beside her anymore. What is it, sweetheart? Did you say something? She smiled gently. Just talking about the tomatoes. But she hadn't said my name. I know she hadn't. We continued walking, but something had shifted. The air felt thicker. The woods, which were usually humming with insects and distant rustling, were completely silent. No wind, no crickets, just our footsteps. Except, there weren't just 2. At first, I thought it was an echo. Dirt sometimes makes strange sounds when stepped on. But as I listened carefully, I realized the rhythm was wrong. Grandma's step, my step, and something else. Another footfall. Softer, almost careful, placed precisely between ours. If I stepped left, it stepped right. If I slowed down, it adjusted. Not behind us, not ahead, between, as if there was space for someone who didn't physically exist. I tightened my grip on Grandma's hand. Do you hear that? Hear what? The walking. She laughed softly. That's us. No, I whispered. There's 3. She stopped again, her expression patient but slightly concerned. There's only you and me, honey. But there wasn't. I could feel it now, not just hear it, a presence walking exactly at my shoulder, close enough that I could sense the heat of it, close enough that the hair on my arms stood up. And then it spoke again, not my name this time. You hear me. The voice wasn't coming from ahead or behind. It was beside me, exactly where that 3rd set of steps belonged. I turned my head slowly. Nothing, just trees, dark trunks stretching upward like pillars, but I felt watched, not in a vague way, in a focused way, like eye contact, like something standing inches from me was studying my face. Don't look at me, it whispered. Clearer now, calmer, almost curious. My heart began pounding so loudly I thought Grandma would hear it. I want to go back, I said quickly. She sighed gently. We just started. Please. There must have been something in my voice because she nodded. All right, we'll head back. The moment we turned around, the 3rd footsteps didn't disappear. They adjusted, still between us, still matching. Halfway back to the house, I felt something brush the air near my fingers. Not touching, hovering, like it was testing how close it could get. I yanked my hand upward, but Grandma thought I'd tripped. Careful, she said warmly. When we reached the porch light, it stopped. I didn't hear the 3rd step anymore. I didn't feel the breath. I didn't feel watched. It was like crossing an invisible line had cut something off. Grandma kissed my forehead before bed. You've always had a sensitive imagination, she told me. She slept peacefully that night. I didn't, because sometime after midnight, I heard it again. Not outside, not in the woods, inside the house. A soft step, then another, walking slowly down the hallway, stopping right outside my bedroom door. I held my breath under the blanket, and then I heard it whisper, "You're easier to hear when she's asleep." I didn't move, I didn't cry, I didn't breathe, and eventually it walked away. The next morning, Grandma was cheerful. She made pancakes. She asked why I looked tired. I almost told her, but something in me knew it didn't want her. It wanted me. And that's the part that followed me into adulthood. Because the woods were miles away, Grandma eventually passed. The house was sold. The trees were cut down. But last week, I was walking home alone after work. Streetlights above me, traffic in the distance, city noise everywhere, and I heard it again. 3 footsteps. Mine, and the one that doesn't belong. Perfectly in rhythm, still between spaces, still matching me. And then, right beside my ear, after 18 years of silence, it whispered, "I never stayed in the woods." The voice didn't fade after it said that. It didn't echo, it didn't distort. It lingered, warm against my ear, like someone leaning close enough to feel their breath move the tiny hairs along my skin. I stopped walking. The city didn't. Cars passed, a bus roared somewhere behind me. People crossed the street without noticing the way my body had gone completely rigid under the streetlight. I told myself it was memory, trauma resurfacing. Brains do that, don't they? They replay old fears when you're tired. But then, the third set of footsteps stopped too. Not an echo, not imagination. It stopped when I stopped. And when I forced myself to move again, it adjusted. Instantly. Perfectly between mine. Not ahead, not behind. Between. I didn't look. I remembered what it had said that night in the woods. Don't look at me. Instead, I focused on the reflection in a dark store window as I passed. Streetlight behind me, my outline clear against the glass. For half a second, I saw only myself. Then I took another step, and my reflection lagged just slightly, a fraction too slow. My body moved forward, but the too curious. "You still hear me," it said. The sound didn't come from the mirror. It came from inside my head, and from the air beside me, and from behind the glass, all at once. The elevator dinged, the doors opened, the mirror was normal, my face was mine again. But the breathing didn't stop. It followed me down the hallway, matched my pace, waited as I unlocked my apartment door, stepped inside with me. That's when I understood something I should have realized as a child. It never needed the woods. The woods were just quiet enough for me to notice it. Inside my apartment, I locked the door, checked it twice, then stood still in the middle of my living room. Silence. Complete silence. For 10 seconds. 20. 30. And then 3 slow footsteps circled me, not visible, but close enough that I felt the air shift against my skin, like something pacing, evaluating, choosing distance. "Why me?" I whispered. The air grew colder near my right shoulder, and the voice, closer than ever before, answered, "Because you answered." My stomach dropped. Answered? I tried to remember that night in the woods, every detail, every word, every movement, and then it came back to me. When I first heard my name, I turned, I listened, I reacted. Grandma didn't. She kept walking, she ignored it. I acknowledged it. I heard it, and something in the woods heard me back. The lights in my apartment flickered once, just once, and in the dark window across the room, I saw 2 silhouettes, mine and one standing impossibly close beside me, head slightly tilted, studying, waiting. Then it leaned closer, and the voice lowered to a near whisper, "I'm getting clearer." The silhouette in the window didn't move when I did. I staggered backwards, my reflection did too, but the second shape, It stayed still for half a second longer, watching me. Then it adjusted, smoothing itself back into alignment beside me, like it was learning timing. The lights stopped flickering, the room returned to normal, but I could still feel where it stood, close enough that the air felt occupied, close enough that my skin prickled on one side. "I didn't answer you," I whispered, my voice shaking. The silence that followed felt intentional. Then, "You listened." The voice wasn't cruel, it wasn't angry, it was observational, like it was explaining something simple, a rule. I forced myself to move toward the window slowly. Every instinct told me not to, but I needed to see it, needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. The glass reflected the room clearly now, just furniture, just me, no second silhouette. But as I leaned closer, my reflection didn't. It remained standing upright while my real body tilted toward the glass. My reflection's eyes shifted first, not following my movement, watching me directly. I stopped breathing. My reflection's lips parted. "You hear better now." I stumbled back so hard I hit the coffee table behind me. When I blinked, the mirror version of me copied the stumble half a second late, delayed, out of sync. It was practicing, learning delay, testing response. The breathing beside me deepened, not labored, not threatening, just closer. I rushed to the kitchen and turned on every light. Cabinets, bathroom, bedroom, flooded the apartment in brightness. The pressure didn't disappear this time, it only shifted, moved slightly farther away, like it didn't mind the light anymore. That realization made something cold settle in my chest. When I was 9, the porch light had stopped it. Now, it was adapting. I stood in the center of my apartment again. Stillness. Then I tried something. I covered my ears, closed my eyes, shut everything out. If it needed me to hear it, what would happen if I refused? The breathing paused. For the first time since the woods, it hesitated. The air grew dense around me, heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Then, silence. Not normal silence, complete absence. No hum of electricity, no traffic outside, no refrigerator buzz, nothing. I slowly opened my eyes. The lights were still on, but the room looked wrong, slightly stretched, corners deeper than they should be, shadows longer, and I realized something that made my stomach twist. There were no reflections anywhere. Not in the window, not in the bathroom mirror down the hallway. I couldn't see myself anywhere. The voice returned, but this time it wasn't beside me. It was layered, like it was speaking from every reflective surface at once. "You stopped answering." A pause. Then, "That makes it harder." The apartment door creaked softly behind me. I hadn't heard it unlock, hadn't heard it open, but a draft brushed across my back, slow, deliberate. I didn't turn. I couldn't, because I understood something else now. It didn't need to stay between footsteps anymore. It didn't need the space between me and someone else. Grandma was the barrier that night. Now there was no one else. The voice lowered again, closer, right behind me, so I'll stand where she stood. A warm breath touched the back of my neck, exactly where Grandma used to rest her hand when we walked, and then I felt fingers, lightly, almost gently, wrap mine. The fingers around mine weren't cold, not like ice, not like death, but they weren't warm either. They were wrong, alive almost, but not hers, not Grandma's, not anyone I'd ever known. I froze, my heart slammed in my chest, every instinct screamed to pull away, but I couldn't. Do you understand now? The voice whispered, right beside my ear and all around me and inside me. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but my legs didn't obey. The fingers tightened slightly, testing me, almost curious. I felt the air shift again, my apartment stretched, the walls bent, not visibly, not like some movie effect, but like I knew the ceiling was higher than it should be, the corners farther away, the hallway leading somewhere it shouldn't. "Why me?" I whispered, trembling. The fingers didn't answer. Instead, the voice spoke directly into my mind. "Because you listen, you hear, you notice." I shivered. That night in the woods flashed through me. The soft steps, the whispered words, the way Grandma never noticed, the way that I had always been the only one to see. It had been waiting all these years, patient, silent, and now I was alone. The room seemed to breathe with it. I felt my reflection shift in the microwave door, a subtle tilt of the head that wasn't mine, not yet. I realized then it didn't have to be in mirrors anymore. It didn't have to show itself. It just had to exist, and I could feel it everywhere. A step behind me in the hallway, a breath above me in the kitchen, a whisper curling through my hair. "Do you remember the woods?" I nodded without thinking. "I do," I whispered. A pause. Then it tightened its grip again, not violently, just enough to remind me that it was there, that it could reach me, that it had been there all along. And then, in the quiet, it said something I had never heard before. "I can teach you." The words didn't sound like a promise. They sounded like a warning, like a sentence. And in that moment, I understood one terrifying truth. It hadn't been waiting for me. It had been preparing me. "I can teach you." The words echoed in my mind, but there was no warmth in them, no kindness, only inevitability. I couldn't move. The grip on my hand, its hand, was firm but not crushing, yet every nerve ending in my arm screamed, "Don't let it." "You don't understand," it whispered, curling around my thoughts. "You've been listening your whole life. You noticed what others didn't. That's why I chose you." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Chosen for what? The air shifted, like the apartment itself had exhaled. Shadows stretched longer than they should. Corners receded. The ceiling leaned away. My reflection finally appeared in the microwave door again, but it wasn't me. Not exactly. The eyes were sharper, predatory, observing, waiting. "Then you heard me in the woods. Because you responded," it continued. "You moved, you reacted, you acknowledged me." I shook my head. "I didn't." "Yes, you did." Its grip loosened just slightly. I took a step back, fumbling toward the living room. "You can't escape me," it said, soft, almost tender, but the warmth was a trick. I could feel the subtle pressure in the floor beneath my feet, the air tightening around me, the subtle echo of footsteps keeping pace. "And you don't need to. You can learn." I wanted to laugh, to scream, to cry, anything to break the suffocating tension. "Learn what?" I whispered. The air thickened. My apartment seemed to warp further. The walls no longer felt solid. "Listen," it said. I did. I realized then that the silence between words wasn't empty. There were layers of sound I hadn't noticed before, the faintest shifts of air, the micro creaks of the apartment, the tiny scratching of fingernails, or maybe claws, against unseen surfaces. "You can hear things," it said, "things others can't. Feel things, sense them, know what hides in shadows, what whispers behind closed doors." I tried to pull my hand away, but the grip returned, firmer this time. insistent, like a teacher guiding a pupil who didn't understand yet. I wanted to pull back, to reject it, but a small, terrifying curiosity bubbled up. What if I don't want to? It chuckled softly, not a human sound, not entirely, more like leaves brushing against each other, a dry whispering noise that tickled my spine. You don't get a choice. Not really. You've already answered me. That night in the woods, you agreed, you heard, you followed, and now you're ready. The lights flickered. The room grew colder. I could feel its presence expand, not just beside me, inside me. My heartbeat matched its rhythm. My breath slowed with its guidance. My eyes, well, I couldn't stop staring at the reflection in the window. It smiled. Not with lips, not with teeth, but with something deeper. Your grandmother never heard me. She never had to. But you can. A strange exhilaration mixed with dread ran through me. I wanted to run, but every instinct I had told me I couldn't. You're going to learn to listen, it said, and then it pressed its hand into mine one last time. Not gently, not violently, just completely. And I felt it, all of it, the footsteps in the woods, the whispers in the night, the third set beside me that had waited for years. It had finally reached me, and I realized with terror and a perverse fascination that there was no turning back, because the next lesson would begin tonight. I felt it completely. Every inch of space around me vibrated with its presence, not just beside me, not just behind me, not just in the apartment. I could feel it inside me, threading through my bones, sliding along my nerves like a liquid shadow. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but my body refused. Instead, it guided me. Good, it whispered, the sound now in my chest, my skull, my throat. I shivered. My apartment seemed to ripple, walls bending just slightly, corners stretching impossibly. Shadows moved along the ceiling, but they weren't cast by anything real. They were alive, watching, breathing, waiting. Close your eyes, it commanded. I did. Darkness, total darkness, except I could see, not with my eyes, but with awareness. I felt the footsteps in the hallway, not mine, not real, not the elevator's echo. Another set, slow, patient, layered over reality. I felt the pulse in the floorboards, the hum in the walls, the pressure of air that shouldn't be there. I opened my mouth to speak. Who are you? A pause. Then laughter. Not cruel, not kind, just knowing. I am the silence you noticed, the step you followed, the breath you felt behind your ear that night in the woods. I've always been waiting for you to see me. My stomach churned. You mean you were the third set as a child? Yes, it said softly, and now you're ready to understand. It released my hand slightly, letting me feel the space it occupied. I realized it was standing in my living room, but not really, not fully. Part of it existed here, part of it still lingered in the woods, in the shadows of trees I hadn't even seen in years. It extended something, not a hand, not quite a shadow, but a presence toward me. My mind screamed to reject it, but something deeper, primal, drew me forward. You're going to hear things others cannot, see things, sense them, walk paths no one else can. But first, you must experience the woods again. My pulse jumped. What woods? Where you first answered me, where you first listened, where you stepped into the space no one else could notice, the place you've carried inside yourself all these years. We'll return there tonight. I wanted to refuse, to lock the doors, to run, to hide, but I knew I already was there. It wasn't about choice anymore. It had been with me all this time, waiting, watching, guiding, and tonight the lesson begins. I looked around my apartment. The shadows had grown darker, thicker, almost liquid, stretching into corners I didn't know existed. And then it whispered, so soft I almost didn't hear it, "Stand still, follow me." And I did, because there was no other way. The air shifted, the floorboards creaked in a rhythm I hadn't noticed before, and I stepped forward, leaving behind everything I knew as the apartment blurred into the night. The woods were waiting, and this time it was real. The woods were waiting. I stepped forward and the apartment dissolved behind me. Not physically, my door, my walls, my furniture, they were still there, but my senses betrayed me. The shadows, the air, the pressure, all pulled me into another place. The night smelled of wet earth and pine. Cool mist clung to the ground. The moonlight filtered through the trees, broken into slivers that barely touched the forest floor. And there, in the middle of the trees, I felt it fully, its presence, coiled and patient, waiting like a predator that had been ignored for too long. "Walk," it said. I did. Each step was precise, not forced, but guided. The third set of footsteps, its steps, matched mine perfectly. Not beside, not behind, not ahead, through me, in my rhythm, in my bones. The forest seemed endless. Every familiar tree from my childhood faded, replaced by ones that bent impossibly, roots riling under the soil, leaves whispering secrets in a language I almost understood. "Do you remember this place?" I asked. "I do." "Good," it said. "Now you will see what I showed you before." The air shifted, shadows stretched, shapes moved in the corner of my vision. I blinked, and they were gone. I exhaled, relief flooding me, until I realized the relief wasn't mine. It had made me feel it, taught me to mistake its presence for absence. A low hum rose from the forest, subtle at first, like wind through the trees, but it grew louder, resonating through my chest, my skull, the ground beneath my feet. It pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Then I saw them, figures, blurred at first, twisting shadows that seemed human, but wrong, limbs too long, heads too still, faces that bent unnaturally when glimpsed through the corner of my eye. They didn't approach, they didn't speak, they merely existed, moving with the rhythm of the third footsteps. "This is what you hear," it whispered. I realized then that these shadows weren't just in the forest, they were everywhere, waiting, observing, synchronized to those who could notice. I stumbled, almost falling over a root. "Do not be afraid," it said, its voice layered everywhere at once, behind my ear, in my chest, inside my skull. "Fear is attention, but focus is power, and you are learning." A cold wind circled me, raising goosebumps across my skin. I turned, and for the first time I saw it clearly, not the shape, not the shadow, but the form of the thing that had haunted me for years. It was like me, and not me. Thin, fluid, almost transparent, eyes wide, pupils too large, observing everything I did. Its lips moved, not in words I could hear, but in shapes my mind understood. "You've remembered, you've been listening, and now you're ready to walk." I swallowed hard. My feet moved forward. I wanted to stop, but my body obeyed. And with each step, the woods changed around me. The path bent, the trees leaned, shadows wrapped tighter. I stepped deeper into the forest, and the world I had known slipped further behind me. The air was thick with mist, cold and wet, clinging to my skin like a warning. The ground beneath my feet was soft, almost swallowing, and every step echoed in a rhythm that wasn't mine. The third steps, always there, matching me perfectly, guiding me, teaching me. "You are learning," it whispered, circling my mind and my body simultaneously. Do not resist. I tried to speak, tried to ask what it wanted from me, but the words refused to leave my throat. I realized then that in this place, speech was unnecessary. Thought alone carried meaning. Shadows shifted, shapes stretched between trees, bending unnaturally, limbs moving in ways no human body should. Faces formed, flickered, disappeared, and reformed again, watching, waiting, patient. "Do you feel them?" the voice asked. "Yes," I whispered inside my head. "Good. That is your first lesson." I stumbled over a root and almost fell. The shadows laughed softly, not cruelly, just aware, observing. "You must walk without looking," it instructed. "Let them show themselves to your awareness, not your eyes." I obeyed, step by step, my mind opening, my senses stretching. Every rustle, every whisper, every subtle movement became clear. Shapes that had been invisible before now hovered at the edge of my perception. Breaths in the air, pressure in the leaves, vibrations in the soil, they all carried messages. And then I felt it. Them. Not one, not two, but many. Figures that matched my steps, echoes of presence I had never known were there. They didn't move toward me, they didn't attack. They only walked, exactly in rhythm with the third steps, learning, adapting, observing. "You can hear them," the voice said. "You can feel them. You can walk among them, and soon you will understand them. You will be like me." A cold hand brushed my shoulder. Not physical, not really, but close enough that I shivered. I could feel the pulse of its presence, a heartbeat that wasn't mine, syncing with mine, guiding mine. I turned slightly, and through the mist I thought I saw a figure resembling my grandmother walking the path behind me. But it was wrong. Too still, too calm. Her face was blank. She didn't notice the shadows. She didn't hear the whispers. She couldn't see what I could. Not for me. For me, the forest opened its arms. The whispers layered, overlapping, and twining themselves with my mind. You are chosen. You hear. You see. You feel. You are awake where others sleep. And now you will take the next step. A sudden gust of wind pushed me forward. Or maybe it wasn't wind at all. It was its breath, guiding, urging, patient. I realized the lesson had begun. I was no longer a visitor. I was a pupil, and the forest had no intention of letting me leave until I learned everything. I felt the forest close around me, not with walls, not with branches, but with awareness. Every tree, every shadow, every inch of mist was watching, breathing, waiting. It wasn't alive in a normal sense. It was alive for me. It existed only because I could perceive it, only because I had been chosen. The third steps moved perfectly beside me, not touching, not pressing, but undeniable. Every footfall a whisper, a reminder that I could never escape what I had answered all those years ago. "You understand now," it whispered, its voice layered in my mind, my chest, my skull. "Do you see them all?" I did. Figures emerged from the mist, not human, not shadows, not fully solid, but watching, following, practicing my rhythm. They were the echoes of everything I had noticed, every subtle rustle, every unnatural pause in the air. They were the forest's lessons, and I had learned to see them. I stumbled. My foot caught on roots that weren't there before. The mist twisted around me. Shapes of figures mirrored me perfectly. They were learning too, moving as I moved, copying, observing. "You've walked these woods alone before," it said. You heard what others could not. You followed what others ignored. And now, I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. Now what? Now you must answer for yourself. A cold pressure pressed against my shoulder. Again, not a hand, not flesh, not bone, but I could feel it as if it were real. I realized then that the forest had never been about walking safely beside grandmother. It had been about me listening, me answering. Do you see the choice? It asked. I did. I could stay, fully awake, fully aware, fully inside this place that had waited for me all these years. I could become what it wanted me to be, hear all that it had to teach, walk where no one else could, learn to perceive the world beyond human sight. Or I could run, try to leave, return to the city, to the light, to normal life. But I knew something I hadn't admitted until this moment. It would follow, always, waiting, teaching, whispering, patient. The forest pulsed. Figures moved in tandem with my heartbeat. The mist shifted like living smoke, wrapping around me. You will be ready, or you will be left behind. There is no in-between. I looked back. For the first time, I saw the path I had walked as a child, faded, twisting, gone in places. I saw shadows where I remembered moonlight. I saw echoes of myself walking beside me, smiling, whispering, listening. And I realized the truth. The woods were not just a place. They were a teacher, a judge, a mirror. Everything I had ignored in my life, the small whispers, the pauses, the steps others never noticed, had led me to this one moment. The third steps circled me slowly. Their rhythm became my rhythm, my pulse, their pulse, my breath, their breath. It was asking me the question without words. Will you step forward? I took a deep breath, and I knew whatever I chose, there would be no undoing it, because the forest doesn't release what it wants. It doesn't forgive. It only waits for you to answer. I took a step forward. The forest exhaled. Not a sound, not a wind, not rustling leaves, but everything shifted. Every shadow, every mist curl, every hidden presence responded. The third steps moved in perfect harmony with mine. The air thickened, pressing against my skin, curling into my lungs, settling in my chest like a living thing. I choose to listen, I whispered. The voice didn't reply. It didn't need to. It was inside me now, around me, flowing through the spaces between the trees, the spaces between my thoughts, the spaces between my very heartbeat. The figures emerged fully from the mist, not human, not shadows, not fully solid, but they mirrored me perfectly. Every step, every tilt of my head, every inhale and exhale, they were me, yet not me. They had waited for this moment for years, and now they moved in rhythm with my decision. The forest itself seemed to pulse, alive in a way I could feel with every nerve. The ground hummed under my feet, the air vibrated, the trees leaned closer, and then I understood. I was no longer walking in the forest. I was the forest. Every whisper, every breath, every unseen motion belonged to me now. Good. You listen, you answer, you walk, and now you teach. I blinked, and the world stretched. The trees that had bent unnaturally, the shadows that twisted impossibly, the figures that had mirrored me dissolved, leaving only awareness. The forest itself was gone, yet everywhere, inside me, outside me, unending. I realized finally why it had waited for me. Not for my grandmother, not for anyone else, only me. I had heard it. I had followed it. I had answered. And now it had made me its heir, its pupil, its vessel. A memory flashed, me as a child, walking beside grandmother, hearing the third steps, feeling the whisper behind my ear. I had thought I had been afraid. I had thought I had survived. But I hadn't survived. I had been chosen. The world tilted. Shadows stretched in every direction. I felt every heartbeat, every whisper, every footstep I had ever noticed in my life, converging, teaching me, binding me. And then the final whisper. You are awake. You are listening. You are the voice of the woods now. I exhaled. Not relief, not fear, not joy, only understanding. I was alone and not alone. The forest had never left me. It had only been waiting for me to answer. And now I had. I stepped forward once more, and the woods spoke, and I finally heard everything.